Welcome to Farm Here Daily, a field forward podcast. I'm David Geiger, your host. I've been on Iowa TV and radio for the last decade, and I am excited to join you on this podcast, Farm Here Daily. Today on the program, a conversation on hail, crop pests, and rain on the research farm with North Central Iowa agronomist Angie Rieck-Hinz. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, making sure folks in Iowa are informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining us on Farm Here Daily, we have Angie Rieck-Hinz, North Central Iowa agronomist. Angie, always good to talk with you. How are you doing, and how's North Central Iowa doing?
North Central Iowa is looking really good, David, minus that hail that happened about a little more than a week ago in places. But the crops are looking good. We finally have some heat to get things going. We've had, I wouldn't say ample rainfall because it's really scattered. So some people have too much, other people want more, but some good rain. And I think our crops are finally, they've kind of turned that early season small yellowish color, and they're starting to look really good.
I want to follow up on that hail note. How widespread was that for folks who didn't really see too much info on it?
Yeah, that's a good point. I can't say that we had a lot of phone calls, but my colleague Gentry will tell you that, there was hail up there between Emmetsburg and Burt, and there was some up north of Wesley, parts of Hancock County. It did kind of tail off through the southeastern corner of Wright County, and I had some reports of hail with very minor damage as far east as Iowa Falls. So in some places, that hail was like crop limiting, right? Like totally wiped out soybean fields, shredded corn, and to the point some of that corn had deep enough bruises and splits and stalks, right, that it's not going to continue to grow, or literally cut it off at the base of the plant. So it's one of those things with weather, right? Hail that's not too bad, and hail is very destructive. So we see that in these spring storms. Who's to say? I doubt we're out of the woods yet on a hail event around here, but it was also very highly spotty.
When you look at the hail when it happens and you have folks calling in, what are your typical recommendations if there is that level of devastation?
Yeah, it really comes down to a couple of things. It comes down to what was the growth stage of that crop. Okay, so in a lot of cases, those soybean fields that were cut off below the cotyledons, right? So that those soybeans may have easily been V2, V3, V4, and they were cut off below those cotyledons. They're dead. We can still replant soybeans, right? We could probably replant soybeans up until about the end of the first week of July or so, and get a decent crop in Iowa. We would shorten up the maturity on those soybeans. However, ever since that hail event happened, it has kept raining, so people can't get back in and replant. So that's a challenge as well, right? For some of the corn, at least the corn I saw, that corn was V8. That growing point was above the ground. Now, if the growing point wasn't injured, it'll continue to grow and shoot new leaves. And it may do just fine, but a lot of the plants I saw, I'd say about 30% of the plants I saw in at least one field had such deep bruises, I could stick my finger into them, or splits, right? Now, that corn plant may still live, but the bigger it gets, right, is it going to stand once it puts an ear on? Is it going to fall over this fall before harvest, right? Is it going to make combining season really tough because that plant just can't hold itself up? It's so weak. So there are a lot of decisions that have to be made. We're kind of at the end of replanting corn, right? Some people will do it if they can get back in there, and most people probably will not do that. But really, the ultimate decision comes down to what your hail adjuster tells you you can or cannot do, what they're going to do, depending on where your hail insurance level's at.
Looking at your area of north central Iowa and moving away from some of the natural disasters, what are some of the phone calls you were getting from your farmers in the area about what's going on there?
Yeah, I think the biggest issues we see this time of year, right? We are almost done with post herbicide application season in corn because the corn's now big enough. We're almost there in soybeans, or everybody's got their post applied herbicide on. For those that don't, right now it's too wet to get that done. So we're still, we're still getting herbicide phone calls. We're getting herbicide, I would say lack of performance calls, right? Depending on when things were sprayed or what was sprayed, and just some issues there. And then there's always the kind of off target movement complaints, drift, things like that. Tank contamination, right? There was something in that sprayer prior to when they maybe switched crops or something like that, that maybe took out a first couple of passes or injured some crop, right? Those are pretty substantial phone calls and take a lot of time this time of year. Other things, right? We're getting questions about, we've had some rainfall. Do I need more nitrogen? And we're nearly past the point of side dressing, at least anhydrous, right? We could still Y drop some 32% for a long time. But yeah, so those are the questions we're getting right now.
Are there any abnormal weeds in the area? You mentioned it's just about end of that time because the corn's big enough. Anything you've noticed in your area?
Well, in terms of abnormal weeds, not really. I mean, the water hemp still and will be our biggest challenge. We talk about this fact. We've found the Asian copperleaf in north central Iowa. We haven't added any new fields to our list this year, so we hope people are still out on the outlook for that. Earlier this year, Megan and I and our weed scientist Wes chased down some Japanese bamboo that was, can be highly invasive. It's here in Iowa and it's in a lot of places, but these happen to be a few new spots to find that particular weed. I got some really nice pictures from a gentleman the other day, and while this weed is not new, Asiatic dayflower, I have never seen a lot of that in north central Iowa, but this field looked, at least the pictures he sent me, looked pretty well peppered with that particular plant. It's an interesting plant, right? It's a monocot, so it's like a grass, but it doesn't necessarily act like a grass, right? And it gets a cute little purple flower on it, and some people would think it's pretty, but it's also very hard to control. So I think those are kind of the weird things we're seeing right now. But those are kind of like one-off situations, right? It's not everybody has those weeds, right? And it's not widespread. So just things for people to be keeping a lookout for, I guess. So early control when you first notice those things is really important.
Absolutely. On a similar note, we are moving towards larger plants, which means we're dealing potentially with insects a little bit more as well. Have you noticed much going on in the north central Iowa fields? I know we've had some first cases of things like gall midge down south. I don't think it gets as far north as where you are, though.
Well, I think gall midge has been found in a good chunk of my counties, but
really,
it has been found in western Iowa so far this spring, right? I think there was a report of that earlier this week. So now is the time for people to be out there scouting for gall midge, right? So if you're looking for gall midge, you're starting on the edge of those soybean fields. Maybe those plants have looked like they've wilted or they don't look near as healthy. The tops of them might be kind of crooked over a little bit. You want to look at the base of that plant, right? And you want to see, right? I would dig up some plants, kind of use a knife and shave back that outer part of the stem to see if you found those orange gall midge larvae. Right now, they are probably whitish in color and very small before they get a little bit bigger and older and turn orange. But now is the time to be scouting for gall midge. The other thing I would tell people is the time to be on the lookout is it's time to be scouting for soybean aphid. Minnesota has reports of soybean aphid. I'm sure we have them in places in Iowa, but I don't have any reports of those. But I have been looking when I've been in soybean fields because it is time for soybean aphids.
Good to know. Now, we are just a couple weeks away. I mean, honestly, it's less than a couple weeks now of June. And that means we're starting to look more at disease pressure as well. Any initial cases or signs over there in north to central Iowa?
I have not seen anything or had any reports. We know that tar spot was reported late last week in central Iowa. And as Allison reminds us, it's really not surprising that it's been found, right? Some of these fields have a pretty high infestation level of tar spot. Most fields in Iowa have had some level of tar spot. Whether we see that disease continue to progress or not will be another thing, right? We're a little early in the season. We've got to have the right moisture and heat conditions. So we might be a tad bit early for that. But if you find it, you probably shouldn't be surprised. Hopefully you've managed for tar spot, maybe with a hybrid selection, or you're thinking about a fungicide application when we get to that point. And right at this moment, we are way too early to think about those fungicide applications. We got a little ways to go.
Now, this might be a dumb question, but I'm not sure if I've asked it before. When you're using some of those resistant hybrids to tar spot in a field, does it kind of starve out the tar spot in the soil in that area? So after a few years, you might be able to change up the hybrids that you're using, or once it's there, is it pretty much just there?
It's like any of our other fungal infections, right? Once we have that disease, it's present in the soil, it's probably not going to go away. Whether it is not going to go away, whether or not that disease expresses itself is at that point in time, right? We always joke about the disease triangle, but if it's a corn pathogen, and we're growing a lot of corn in Iowa, we have the host. If we have the pathogen present, the pathogen part of the triangle is present. We really got to think about that third leg of that triangle, which is the climate. So last year we had some tar spot, but we didn't have significant tar spot, and it came in late. And normally that's what we see happen. And this year we've had maybe a little bit more rainfall than we've had in the previous couple of Mays and Junes so far. So that might be a good indication we could see a greater prevalence of disease this year. We're just going to have to wait and see. This hot weather that's coming, right, is going to slow down anything, because most pathogens don't like it really hot. So we just have to wait and see what June kind of turns off to be like weather-wise. If it stays with some moderate temperatures and we continue to get rain and we keep that canopy moist, we may see a lot of disease development. If it turns off dry or extremely warm, which I would call the next couple of days, the opportunity for those diseases to develop may be hampered.
We have seen some invasive weeds. We've seen some new pests like the soybean gall midge. Are there any diseases around the country that folks are keeping a particularly close eye on that they don't come to Iowa?
Well, I'm not a good plant pathologist, but the general answer to that question is yes, right? We talk about red crown rot in soybeans. It's not been found in Iowa. It has been found in other states. So yes, we should always be on the lookout for new insect pests, new pathogens, whatever the case may be, right? Our growing season's changing a little bit, right? Our climate's adapting a little bit. And sometimes the opportunity for those particular pests, whether it's an insect or a pathogen, to thrive in Iowa, that changes over time, right? So we should always be on the lookout for those kinds of things. If you see something in the field that you don't know what it is, you can't identify it, or those plants don't seem to be acting normal, I think you should call an agronomist, right? And we have a really good opportunity, at least through Iowa State, that anybody can use, is our plant insect and diagnostic lab, right? Where you can send in samples and they can be cultured out and identified to see what that particular disease might be if you can't identify it.
Right. And I think that just society as a whole, modernization and new technologies made it so it's really easy to also share that. So,
Yeah.
are there some specific places like websites folks could potentially send pictures to, etc.?
I would start with the Crop Protection Network. If you just Google Crop Protection Network, right, that it's a conglomeration of universities, um, plant pathologists, entomologists, other people, right, including nutrient deficiency things. Um, there are some good articles on there, good ID practices, right? Good, skills to ID things. I think that's a great place to start.
You are listening to Farm Here Daily. We'll continue the conversation in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at the marketplace. And there was some green on the board at the Thursday close. July corn up 2 cents, 433 and a half. September rising 5 and a quarter at 429. Soybeans in July of 3/4 of a penny more at 10.74 and 3/4, with August half a penny up at 10.76 and 3/4. Soybean meal in July 20 cents a ton in the red at $284.90. July wheat 25 and a quarter cents higher at 5.74 and a quarter, with September rising 25 cents at 5.90 and a half. In the livestock market close for Thursday, green there as well. June live cattle up $1.05 a hundredweight, $224.30. August rising $1.02 a hundredweight at $211.67. Feeder cattle in August 82 cents a hundredweight higher at 304.17, with September 90 cents in the green at $303.80. Lean hogs in July 52 cents a hundredweight up at $112.17, with August rising 20 cents a hundredweight at $112 even. That is the Thursday market close. This is Farm Here Daily. Angie Rieck-Hinz joining us, Iowa State University Extension agronomist for North Central Iowa. Angie, I wanted to talk a little bit about drought as well, because we saw some less than normal rain earlier in the month and last month as well. But is that really the case in North Central Iowa?
Well, David, you asked really hard questions, right? Because there are people. I have reports of people north of Mason City that have had over 6 inches of rain in the last week, and yet I
Six,
have
as in 6 inches of rain?
correct. Yes,
Wow.
you are correct. Obviously there was some very localized heavy rains in places. I have had people who are like, "Wow, we need a rain." So, I cover 8 counties. The disparity from field to field, county to county is pretty high sometimes. Just to give you an idea, our research farm at Kanawha, for the month of June had 1.88. I'm sorry, for the month of May had 1.88 inches. That's well below normal for May at the research farm at Kanawha. So far for June, and thanks to Ben at the research farm for always sharing these numbers, they're at about 7.2 inches, right? And that was through yesterday. So that's a little above normal for the research farm. It is extremely wet around Kanawha and north of Kanawha. There are ponds in places, right? There's sticky fields in places, and then there are places where people are still wishing that they had a rainfall, right? So I think that's really interesting. And if I look at the mesonet just for the growing season, and I look basically for cities on the reporting stations across the counties I cover. So from like April 10th through yesterday or today, all inclusive kind of thing, Fort Dodge. Fort Dodge is still 1.78 inches of rainfall behind average from that April 10th period through today,
Wow.
even though they've been getting rain for the last week or so. Hampton and Iowa Falls, well, Iowa Falls is nearly 2 inches above normal. Mason City's 2.5 inches above normal, and Webster City's 3 inches above normal for that time period. So, like I said, it's extremely spotty, right? It's not consistent across the area, and we saw some storms basically train over the same area over and over again earlier this week.
Well, it sounds like I'll have to grill our state climatologist at the end of the month and see exactly how spotty it was around the state.
Yeah. And we always tend to think about our local neighborhood, right? So To think about what rainfall means on a statewide basis is a hard concept to grasp.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to pull out something you said during that question, which was you were calculating some of the rainfall totals in the research farm. And that reminds me that next week you all are having an anniversary for, I believe, that research farm. Is that correct?
It is. And I think you're joining us, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm planning on heading up there.
Great. I'm just, I'm going to kind of extend this invitation. The Northern Research Farm at Kanawha, Iowa is the oldest outlying farm in the Iowa State Research Farm system. This farm really came to be in the middle of the Great Depression in 1930. Farmers were looking to grow some things besides corn and oats, basically, at that time. We weren't growing a lot of soybeans yet then. And the president of American Crystal Sugar asked the then Dean Curtis at Iowa State at the college, right, if there was a way to get some help. And basically that short story was because we were in the middle of the Depression, nobody really thought the legislature or the State Board of Education would give money for a research farm. So the president of American Crystal Sugar and the local businessmen and farmers in and around that Kanawha area, about 400 of them, raised about $12,000 to purchase 85 acres. That's pretty impressive in the middle of the Great Depression, right? There were a lot of foreclosures, lots of bad things happening in that time. Not a lot of money. So to raise money to put a research farm somewhere other than Ames, right, was a big deal. That farm is owned, much like our other outlying farms, is owned by a research association, in this case, the North Central Iowa Research Association. It has about 80 members, and it's made up of a board of directors of about 20 people. And this last couple of years, they chose to start a capital campaign to raise funds to put up a new research and extension facility. That farm had not had a new facility or building in 40 years. It didn't have a classroom. Things weren't ADA compliant, and the equipment no longer fit in the shop, right? Because the equipment has outgrown the original shop size. So over the course of the last 5 years, through a capital campaign, they've raised dollars to put up that facility. And next week, we're having an open house to celebrate that brand new facility, and obviously to celebrate 95 years of that research farm's existence. It's still a very active farm. There's a lot of research trials there. We have a brand new gorgeous building, new shop, classroom, which we never had before. It's got expanded offices, new bathroom and kitchen facilities. It's going to be a great place to do a lot of extension meetings in the future, and we're really excited, and we hope people can join us from 4 to 7 on June 26th at the research farm. If you're coming, all I ask that you do is drop me a phone call, a text, and an email, and RSVP so we can feed you supper that night.
Well, you heard it. Angie Rieck-Hinz offering an opportunity to see a historic research farm in North Central Iowa. I'm going to be there. She's going to be there. We're going to have a good time on Thursday of this upcoming week. Angie Rieck-Hinz, North Central Iowa agronomist for Iowa State University Extension. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, David.
Thanks again, Angie. This is Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local content, we would love to have you join our community. Please follow the podcast. Take a look at our social media channels as well at Field Forward Pod. You can also find me on social media at Geiger Reports, and you can see me on WHO TV Channel 13 every weekday in their morning and noon hour programs. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody.